That will be helpful for others who weren't able to make this particular time. I'm going to go. Feel free to jump in. You can unmute yourself. I'm going to mute people to start. Just that tends to keep the noise down. But if you want to say something, it's a small group, just go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll be good. All right, so my name is Laura Yedwab, and I created Feldy Notebook a long time ago, back when I was in my training. And I always sort of like to start with, I'm going to share my screen for a moment. This picture, because it really, to me, captures the state I was in. I'd been about 2 years into the training. I had tons of recordings from my own training. I had the Amherst recordings, I had the Amherst transcripts. I don't even think I had the AY books at this point. So they're not even in here, but I had, you know, enough stuff that was feeling a bit overwhelming. Didn't really like when I wanted to find a dead bird lesson, didn't know where to look. But what bothered me even more than not knowing where to find things was the feeling that all this material was such great reference material. It's sort of like the Bible, it's like the source. But there's nothing where I could go to get information that had happened in the last 40 years. I mean, Moshe wrote it in 1980 or 1950, some of this stuff, that's nice. But really nothing, I can't find anything except to go back to the source. Like, yeah, you know, I'm Jewish, and in Judaism, you have the Bible, and then you have the Talmud, which is the commentaries on the Bible. It's like people come up with information. And it turned out, I wasn't thinking about this so much at the time, but information like, you know, online to find recordings of the ATMs, to find videos of the ATMs, and just to find out, you know, as people use the material, what they learn. And so, and I really didn't want to do it by myself. I really wanted to be sort of a community based, because there's a limit to what I can do. Lynette Reed has a wonderful Excel spreadsheet that she created, but there's no way for other people to add information to it. And so it seemed pretty obvious to me, even way back then, in those early days, wasn't that early of the internet, that I wanted an internet-based solution. So I created Feldy Notebook, and I want to share one more screen again. Oops, that was not, okay, it's fine. And it's a web. It's like the internet. And so it consists of pages, and this is showing one very small portion of the web, but of Feldy Notebook. But there's a page called Sources, which has sources, and it points to one page for AY volume, and there points to more pages than that. This is just a small subset. And then each volume points to some number of ATMs, and each ATM has its own page. And the pages themselves can be interlinked. So in this case, all these ATMs have something to do with walking. And so they would be connected. So I not only get information about a particular ATM, I can get information about how those ATMs are integrated or related, interrelated, probably a better word. All right, so how are we doing? So far, so good? Good. All right, so I want to just go ahead and bring it up. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. All right. And of course, just actually really should start all places. You should always should begin at not Google Maps. Come on. So if you just go to Google and type in Feldy notebook, it will get you to the old site. Here we go. All right. So the home page is just a list of, you get to sort of key pages that you want to. And one of the really most important pages is the source page, which is, again, that page I showed in the graph, which points to all other sources. So for Moshe, we have lots of sources. He has all the AY volumes, Amherst, ATM book, a bunch of San Francisco, but there are other sources. And Feldy Notebook doesn't really care where this ATM is coming from. You can always create a new source and add it. It will scale just fine. And one could, it'd be a little bit of a funny way to try to find an ATM, but one could just like randomly open up Alexander Knight Volume 7 and just, this is totally random, click on an ATM and, oh look, here's a synopsis of it and here's a outline for it. So every ATM page that's in here, not every ATM that's ever been taught is in here, but for those ATMs that people have spent time to put in, there's a little bit of a synopsis, there's an outline, and then if there's something particular about the way it was taught, if there are related ATMs that are worth pointing to, any resources like online recordings of the ATM, and a place to share thoughts. And the idea is that the share thoughts can be very subjective. The lesson outline is pretty objective. You know, the related ATMs is pretty objective, but the share your insights, that can be pretty subjective. Like when I did this ATM, I felt whatever it is. And we don't really have to agree on the share insights. I could think this ATM would be great in this situation. You could think it'd be great in some other situation. That's fine. It's just a place for us as a community to add our thoughts and lessons. All right, so again, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and just check in. Questions, thoughts? Okay, all good?
Yeah, Vicki, I was just wondering, how many lessons have been documented like this? Is it, like 50% or 20?
Hold on, I will tell you. I have to find it though first. Okay, this is a very imprecise number, but Feldy Notebook currently has 453 pages in it. So a page, most pages are lessons, but not all pages are lessons. We'll look at them, like there's the source page. People put pages in just about information they think would be useful to other people, like about teaching ATMs. There are theme pages, which we'll talk about in a moment. It's like 400-ish.
Yeah, and I was just wondering also how to determine if they've been filled in. Is that part of the color? Because I noticed some were black and some are red.
Yes, if the page is there, it's a link, and it'll be underlined as a link.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Now, randomly, sometimes it's fun just to randomly jump around to try to find a page you want. tends not to be what you want. So there's some other ways to find pages. So for example, if you care about dead bird, and I don't know dead bird's one word or two here, you can search, and this will search both the title and the content. It'll come up with a bunch of pages. Or you could search on violin, I don't know, and elbow and crooks. That would make sense, right? So, famous lesson. Or you could just search on the title. I mean, if you really know that the title is, well, elbows and crooks, right? You could type in that. Another I think, very important, interesting way to look for ATMs is to look at themes. And this is a list of, these are a list of themes. Themes are a category of lesson where we know there's multiple variations of that lesson, but we still think of it as an interesting theme, like pelvic clock, right? There's not one. Moshe didn't teach pelvic clock once. He taught it many times, right? So if we go to the pelvic clock theme, then this is a page that it talks about what the theme is, and these are all the pelvic clock lessons that are currently in the Feldy notebook. And so what's nice here is, here's a place you can go. It's like, you know, I want lots of variations on pelvic clock. And then when you go to any of these pages, it will point you back to the list of pelvic clock themes. It'll point you back to the theme, or sometimes it only has the theme, sometimes it has the list of lessons. But this list is dynamically generated. And we'll talk about how that works. But if you tag a lesson saying this is a pelvic clock lesson, then it will appear in that theme. So similarly, we go to breathing, right? And there are a fair number of breathing lessons. Now, unlike pelvic clock, you could say these are all different, but it was enough of an interesting thing, like, oh, I really care about breathing, that we could tag lessons in Feldy Notebook that deal with breathing, and then have these related ATMs show up. Right? Just one more example. I think themes are actually one of the coolest parts of Feldy Notebook. So if we go to coordinating flexors and extensors, another great example, right? This would be more like the pelvic clock example, which is all of these crossing knees and coordinated eye movements, crossing knees and twisting the back and pelvis. These are all variations, and yet they're different. And so if you really want to study coordinating flexors and extensors, this would be a great way to go look at it. Now, there are a lot of, Moshe might have taught coordinating flexors and extensors in other places that are not in Feldy Notebook, but these are the ones that are actually in Feldy Notebook. So if you click on any one of these, it's actually there. And in this case, in this lesson, it's interesting. You know, the person who entered this lesson said, in terms of related ATMs, it's both a coordinating extensor and flexor lesson, but also has to do with breathing. A lot of those lessons, you do seesaw breathing as part of that. And so if I want to know what related ATMs, I can look in either place, depending on what I care about. In this case, this is the first one we've seen it for. There's also a link to an online recording, right? So, so if you were to create a recording of a lesson and you wanted to share it with the community, this would be a great place to put it, right? So, and I think, again, this is one of the great things about Feldy Notebook is that, yes, I can always go back to the source, but what's nice here is that on this one page, I can find lots of things that are related to that source, including audio recordings. Very often on Feldy forum or on Facebook, there'll be discussions of ATMs, but then a year later, when you're interested in that ATM, it's hard to find that discussion. Where here, the organization is around the ATM. So if you're interested in ATM, you can go to that ATM and see whatever discussion there is. And I hear that more people are entering, and I just it's a good moment, I think, to stop share and say hello, and just, again, so far okay? Okay, good. So just feel free to unmute and pipe in whenever you need to. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again and come back here. All right. Another sorry. Okay. So the way lessons go into themes is they're tagged. And this tag cloud shows me a list of all the tags. So if you're ever curious about, is there a tag that's about the Dantian? Actually, it turns out there is. It's only 2 lessons. It hasn't sort of made it up into that upper theme category, but it's there. And in general, like chess forward, I don't think that should probably be a tag. You want tags to be something that a fair number of ATMs would actually make it into. But there are 2 tags I particularly want to draw your attention to. One is audio and one is video. And what's nice about video is this is the 56 lessons where somebody's added a video to it. And so just to show an example of that, and I have no idea, here we go. So here's a lesson. There isn't very much information about the lesson, but someone has produced a short video.
This is a reminder move for awareness to number 268, hip joints by the way of lengthening. Please lie on your back.
I'm just going to jump into the middle of this.
Right. And again, begin to move your pelvis in a way so that your left leg can get longer and then get shorter.
Okay.
And you've got to do that.
Good enough. That's a relatively longer video. I'm just going to randomly pick another one. No, it's the same. Hold on, same person. I want a video that's a different person. Oh man, I seem to be, there we go. Here's another example of a video. Just showing the ATM in 5 minutes. All right, there are better examples, but we'll go with that. All right. All right, so I think that's pretty good in terms of what it is and navigating it. What I'd like to now do is talk about how would I add a lesson? That sound good? And again, I don't actually have a lesson to add, so we're gonna make it up. So that's okay. So let me share my screen. Go back there. All right, so let's pretend for a moment you happen to have spent a lot of time looking at Tour Japanese City, AY 452, and that's you're excited about it. You want to add it to Feldy Notebook. So what you do is right up here where it says new page, There's going to be a new page in that web of pages. You're going to click on it. Now, you're only going to see this, by the way, you're only going to have seen that plus new. Oh, hold on. I want to actually back up. I want to describe one thing first. Let's say instead, you've been looking at coordinating head forward and pelvis backwards, 451, and you now have something you want to add about this page. So the page already exists. Let's take that case first. The page is there. Somebody's had a nice synopsis, but they haven't created a lesson outline. If you've registered to Feldy Notebook and you've logged in, so right here you can see I'm logged in, then you will see an edit page at the top. If you click on edit page, it'll bring up an editor. And, you know, it's a pretty simple basic editor. And then you could come in here and say, I'm not going to save it, you know, Moshe really focused on ease of movement and not holding your breath. Something like that. I have no idea if that's true, but we're just going to say that for now, right? Or you could come in here and say, you know, when I did this lesson, I realized that, and then I'd say, I'd sign it. For my own name, great. So you just come in and edit it, and if you hit update, then that would publish it, and that would actually create that page. And that's really all there is to it. That's as easy as it takes to edit an existing page. You go to the top, you hit edit, you come into this little browser, you update. Now, like many web-based applications, sitting behind this page is, this is the visual editor and looks like Word, bold, sorry, all that good stuff. But behind it is actually HTML. And I would like to say you don't have to know HTML, and that's basically true. But if things get messed up, it's because HTML got messed up. So it should be the case that you can sit in the visual editor and see it nice. But when things get really screwed up, feel free to email me, because the reality is the way to fix it is to fix the HTML. And that tends to be a little harder than most people can do. And that's fine. Just email me, it's fine. I will fix it. All right, but I'm not going to hit update today. I am just going to go back, and it's going to tell me I haven't saved my changes, and that's okay. Those changes don't need to be saved. All right, so again, I'm going to pause. Questions, thoughts? Following along? Good. All right.
Laura,
Yeah.
I've actually made my own website using WordPress, so all that looks very familiar to me.
Yeah. Good.
I spent hours and hours on a summer vacation creating my webpage from no knowledge to a website. So it's possible. But I imagine anyone sitting here who's never created a webpage would be terrified of clicking anything on that. And particularly, like if you wanted to add a hyperlink for a video or something because you had a video footage or
Yep.
an audio file, I don't know, like little show of hands, put your hand up if you'd be happy to go in and press update on this website, or would you be terrified? Terrified?
Yeah. You know, actually, okay, so this brings up a really good point. So right now I'm logged in as an administrator. If you log in as a normal user, there aren't as many choices on the left that there are. So you can only see the pages. You can't go in and like mess with the menus, or you'll still be able to edit a page, but you won't be able to change the menu structure or change the theme in any way. So as registered users, it's more limited to what you can do. WordPress keeps a backup copy. So if you mess up a page, it's okay. You can go back. I grab backups fairly frequently. So I would encourage people to not be afraid, actually, to mess it up. I'm not going to be upset. But you know, if that's not enough, then you can just send me email, and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to. If you send me like, oh, look, here's my synopsis, here's my outline, that would be fine too. Or, you know, I really noticed here's a great video of this ATM, or here's a great audio of this ATM, could you add it? And people do that, and it's okay. But, you know, I forget what it is, like 40 million WordPress sites out there right now. Let me see if I can find that real quick. It's something crazy. Okay, they're estimating 75 million websites out there that are WordPress. So, you know, a lot of, you know, some people will, it's not an esoteric platform. I'll say that.
It's good that you just tell people that it's backed up and that they shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
And even though this is going to be a long session, it might even be something you can create as a 2-minute snapshot of the screens. Like, there's the screen, click here and save here. Like just a reminder of that's where you open and that's where you save. You know, I don't know, just a go-to, a simple go-to.
Yeah, and we do have some documentation, and this is a great example of the community helping. It was a joint, hold on, I can find myself again. Where is it? What did I just do? I just exit work. Hold on a second. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. Creating a new lesson, which we'll talk about in a minute. But there is, so down on the right here, creating a new lesson, there is a series of instructions. So now I will say, in the next 3 to 4 months, some of this is going to change, because we're going to come out with a new version. But I decided to go ahead and do this talk because it might be a few months before the new version comes out. And in the new version, some of these steps will change, and it will be a little more user protected. It'll be even harder as a user to mess things up. But yes, basically right now, you're an editor of a WordPress site. You're not when you register, you don't become an admin, you become an editor. And that allows you to change pages. Change pages. All right, so I do want to go through a process of adding something. So I have no idea how preparation for a shoulder stand goes, but we're just going to start with that. Let's say I wanted to add that ATM. So I come up here and I'd say add new page. And it assumes that if you're creating a new page, you're creating a new ATM page. If you're creating a different type of page, like you just want to create a page on the case of Nora, you could just come here and, you know, delete the whole thing. But it assumes that chances are when you're creating a new page, you're creating a new ATM page. And we just said we're going to create, oops, that's not what we're going to create. Preparation, what was it? Preparation for a, what was it?
Shoulder stand, was it?
Shoulder stand. Good job. Shoulder stand. And for the AYs, the convention is you add the number at the end. So the link, the source for that is going to be volume 1, Alexander Yanai, volume 1. And to create a link, it's pretty similar to most editors. You highlight what you want. Right there is the insert edit link button. And if you start typing, it will show you all the pages that have that title to begin with, or have that Alexander in it. And we want Alexander volume 1. So that it inserts the URL. You could have also just, I could have come here and grabbed this URL. Either way, I'm inserting that URL and I'm applying that. And so now I've created a link. You know, and then you come in, you write a couple of sentences, you know, this is a great,
Laura, it's May. Can you just say you created a link to what exactly?
I created a link to the source page. So, hold on, I'm going to share this. So the Alexander Yanai volume 1 is going to point to, when we haven't created the arrow yet from AY volume 1 to preparing for a shoulder stand. But we're also, but we're sitting on this page and we're creating a link from preparing for a shoulder stand back to the AY volume 1 page. Does that make sense?
I'm just not sure, because I missed maybe the first few minutes.
Yeah.
Is it like a text of the lesson, or just to the table of contents?
No, it's to the table of contents. Let me share the other. So actually, so here's the Alexander Yanai volume 1 page that has the list of lessons. So it's a link back to this page. So the lesson points to the table of contents, and table of contents points to the lesson. So you can go from one to the other. Okay, so that's the source. It's like it's basically saying, even if there wasn't a link, if I'm going to tell you about this ATM, you would want to know, was this an Amherst ATM, an AY ATM, a San Francisco ATM? And so this is saying where the source is. And since the source is also a page in Feldy Notebook, it creates a link to that source. And then I basically just start filling this in, you know, lie on your back and whatever, I don't know what this ATM is. Places where people tend to get messed up is when they have their notes, and they have their notes like in Word or something with lots of numbering. So if I come into Word, and, you know, I create something like this. Right? And then I try to cut and paste this into that lesson outline. The cut and paste interaction with the HTML, sometimes that doesn't work out so well, is my experience. And so what I'd suggest people do instead is go to something like Notepad. Sorry. take the, oh, you guys can't see when I go to Notepad. Hold on. I just realized I need to share my whole screen. Otherwise, you're not going to see, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. There you go. Okay. So here in Word, I created something like this, you know, just a list. But if I try to cut and paste this list directly into Feldy Notebook, when it tries to create the HTML for that list, things sort of get messed up. So the only real advice I have when you want to do something like that is actually to not start, to start with something much more simple. You know, just get rid of all the numbering, or, you know, or just create it from scratch. Whatever. And then paste it into Feldy Notebook, because it should work, but that's usually where people get frustrated, right? So instead of cutting and pasting this, it's just coming back here and using the numbering that's here already, instead of trying to cut and paste the numbering in. But besides that minor point, it is, you just fill this in, all right? And then, I'm going to just say temp here, just so we know that this is not real. And then you can go ahead and publish it. And so that creates this new page. And then I've added a page. Now, the problem right now is this page is sort of floating in this network. It's not, we haven't created a link from the source to it. And so then the other thing I'd want to do is come in and edit Alexander Nye Volume 1, preparation for a shoulder stand, and I'd want to create a link. So I'd highlight it, insert edit link, and then if I say temp, preparation for a shoulder stand, I could apply that. And now this would take me to that temporary that page I just created, right? So the two pages would be linked. I realize I keep looking to the right because that's where I have, Zoom has all your faces. I should be looking straight at you. And then I just go ahead and click update on that. And that's really all there is to it. All right. Okay, so questions, thoughts? Yeah. So, yeah, what I would suggest is sort of, what I'd love is if, sometime, the next time you teach an ATM, take your notes, right? You create notes in any case, right? These are the steps. Take your own notes and add them to Feldy Notebook. Fine.
I have a question, Laura.
Yep.
Oh, bad lighting here. It sounds like because of HTML that doing something like making a chart and trying to insert that into Feldy Notebook probably will not work. Like using Excel or something like that.
Yeah, I think what you'd want to do in that case is upload the file, not try to format it into HTML, but just upload a file and have the file there, or you could have the file on Dropbox and insert a link to the file, or you could upload the file. Either way.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any I am excited to say that we are working on getting search in that would not only for the AY lessons, not only search the contents of Feldy Notebook, but also search the transcript in order to tell you which PMs would have that phrase. We wouldn't be able to show the transcript since that's copyrighted material, but we'd be able to come back and say, actually, even though this ATM is not in Feldy Notebook, the word violin appears in that ATM in the AY material. So that's underway, and I'm actually pretty excited about that. Trying to think about what else would be good to know. Yeah. You know, I think I think the thing that is going to make it work is, you know, if you find it useful to use, it's sort of like a pay forward, you know, to add an ATM or two. And really don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always interested and happy to, you know, if you get confused or something doesn't seem right, I can almost always go in there and fix it.
This Vicky, I had a question. If you have a couple of sources, let's say I was doing the Resumnes training, so they are referring to AY, and so you have two sources. Do you prefer a format of this one over this one? Would I say AY first from this because it's a reinterpreted version, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my preference would be if it's someone's interpretation of it.
Yeah.
And in the ideal world, and you know that that's really an interpretation. I mean, it's pretty that person really was. You know, some people it's their interpretation, but they really were sitting there doing it.
Right. Exactly.
But if it's someone's interpretation where they, you know, took the basic idea and made it their own, that the write-up of their steps would be under them, not under Moshe. Right. So if the steps are following how Moshe taught it, then it would, like an AY lesson, then it would be under the Moshe. If it's Jeff's interpretation of Moshe, then it would be under Jeff or Larry Goldfarb or.
Right, but you would still. Would you add the AY though, just so they? I mean, 'cause some people won't be able to have Jeff's interpretation, right? And so they may want to reference back to the original.
Well, I'd say that'd be so. Again, let's assume that we'll pick on Larry Goldfarb. That Larry taught it, and when you said to Larry, "What was that?" He said, "Oh, that was, you know, AY 17."
Yeah.
When you looked at AY 17, it was like AY 17, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't the thing, right? Then what I do is right. What I do in that case, I think what the right thing to do in that case is you create a source, which is, let's say this is from Larry Goldfarb's something training, right? So that's a source, right? So you'd create that as a source page. That would point to Larry's interpretation. And you'd write it up just the way Larry said it.
Right.
But under related ATMs, you'd point to the AY.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then if you really want to be great about it, in the I know what I didn't show. Okay, but it doesn't matter. In the AY lesson, you could point to Larry's.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, but I think it's I think in terms of when we get it down to here's the 10 steps, that's for the source where we get those 10 steps from.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you just looked at how many pelvic clock lessons are in there, for example, you realize that there were a lot of variations on how even pelvic clock gets
Right.
and even how Moshe taught pelvic clock. So actually, the one thing I didn't show, and my guess is it's okay, especially since it'll probably change in the near future. But just so you know, is when you add the lesson, if it is one of these theme lessons, then you want to tag it. Like, oh yeah, this is a pelvic clock lesson. And there's a way to do that. I can show it to you. I don't know. Do you want to see that? Sure. All right. So come back here. Okay, so here's our preparation for a shoulder stand that we're doing. And then let's say, this is a theme, like we have shoulder stand. Actually, we do. As a theme, then we'd tag it here, we'd hit add. And every place where in the theme or weighted ATMs where there's that list of lessons, it would now include this lesson in that list. Because this tag is here, right? And if this was we also thought this was a breathing lesson. Actually, if we saw it was a seesaw breathing lesson, then this lesson would appear in the dynamic list of any list for weighted ATMs that we have for breathing. And it's just a short, easy way to interlink all these ATMs, because when I go to add a pelvic clock lesson,
你吃完饭了？
what's that?
Huh.
I don't want to have to go to every pelvic clock lesson and say, oh, I just added one. So all I need to do here is tag this new lesson as a pelvic clock lesson, and then it will appear in all the links.
Cool.
Yeah. So I really, this is one of these things where it might sound great, and if you wait 6 months, it'll go by. So take this opportunity if you could. Teach an ATM, write it up, add it, email me. I promise. I'm always excited. I also get emails every time anybody changes Feldy Notebook. So you can feel relatively safe and secure that I am sort of watching over it. Which leads me to the one last funny story. Feldy Notebook has only been hacked twice. Once someone did, the sort of terrible hack of, going to the home page and creating a link on one of the words that pointed to some porn site, like that was annoying. But the other one I still laugh at, which is the other one. If I come back to home, is this picture was hacked. And one day I get this email saying someone's updated the homepage. Now I really care if somebody updates the homepage, because that would be, if they messed with it in a bad way, that would be bad. And I go to the homepage and I can't figure out what the difference is. Like, it says it was changed and I can't figure out the change, and I'm looking. And I finally realized that the change is in this photo. Alphonse had just published this book, and I didn't own this book back in 2012. And he went and he photoshopped in his book into my photo. So I thought that was hilarious. So, but for the most part, people editing the pages are very respectful and are trying to do the right thing. And it's really been a wonderful project to work with folks. So I think that's
I just logged in as a user, and the page I see as a user, not as an administrator, is very different to what you've showed us. So hopefully that's in the how-to.
Do you want to share your screen for a second?
So I should be able to share my screen to show what I can see, is it?
Yeah. There's a share screen at the bottom. It's a green in between participants and chat.
Hang on. Okay, so if I share that. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah. So you're in the back end. So where it says feldynotebook.com in that upper left, just click on that. Just click on that.
Yeah, but this is just saying this is the first page you'll see when you log in. So if you sign into Feldy Notebook, this is what appears. Yeah. So just go up the top there to visit site.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So when we're on visit site,
that's right. Now, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I'll have to think about if that's possible to fix that. So now
I can't click on preparation for a shoulder stand.
Well, that's because I didn't save it, because that page wasn't a very good page. I didn't save it.
Okay.
But you could go ahead and click on like seeing the heels or bending the head. Right there. Yeah, right. One of those, any one of those. That's good. Seeing the heels. Yep. Click on that. Good. And then you could click on edit page at the top. There you go. And now you could edit it.
Edit it. Okay.
Yep. And then when you're done editing it, there's that blue update button to the right. You'd be able to click on that. I'm not suggesting you do that at the moment. But that's right. And then and if you want to go back, just click on feldynotebook.com. Yeah, visit site, or just, click right there. There you go. Perfect. You did it.
And then if I wanted to add a new page, I'll just go to here.
That's right. And you said, that's right. Do it. Do it. Let's do it. Go ahead. Do it. Do you click on page? There you go.
Okay.
Hold on. Give it a second. Okay. And then you enter the title.
So this is,
yep.
Yeah. This is where, oh yeah, okay. All right. All right. I'll have a play with that later.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually, yeah. As you said, it's just a WordPress website. It's a bunch of pages that get interlinked, and you can go in there and edit any page you want. And it's funny, when I first started this project, there was a lot of concern about people adding bad information, fake news to it or something. And it just hasn't been a problem. Anybody who's committed enough to take the time to add information, my experience has been, it's been great. It's worked out just fine. We're a pretty small community, but people, again, if you've gone through the effort of understanding an ATM and wanting to add it to Feldy Notebook, it's fine. It's just fine. And yeah, and I think it's, what I'm excited about, and I started this project 8 years ago. I started on a different platform. We only moved it over to WordPress this year because Wikispaces went away. You know, and it started out as 2 ATMs, then 3, then 4, then 10, then 15, you know. And it wasn't really that useful at 15 ATMs or 30. But, you know, at a couple of hundred, you know, where you have 50 of those ATMs have video files and 70 of them have links to audio recordings. And, you know, my sense interacting with people is it's actually become useful. I mean, again, you guys can tell me. And really, really hoping that people, you know, not everyone, but enough people continue to get sort of inspired and motivated by it to add. Like right now, Rob Black has been a pretty consistent contributor over the past year. And it's just really great. And then we all get to benefit from that. So, and yes, I just got a chat. This is being recorded and I will share it out, the recording. So no worries about that. Any other thoughts, questions? That was probably plenty. Just know you can always email me. I'm going to put my email in chat. It's just my last name at hotmail.com. And I hope to talk to you all at some future time. All right. Bye.
Thank you, Laura, so much.
Yeah, thanks. It's been great. Appreciate
Yes,
everything.
thank you. That was wonderful.
And
Thank
it's a wonderful website that you put together. I've used it a lot. I can't believe it's only been 8 years that you had it. I feel like I've been using it longer than that. So it's really nice. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I appreciate the time and everything everybody's put into it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're really welcome.
Thank you, Laura. It's very
Laura.
kind. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Peggy.
Bye, everyone.
We should
Bye.
all, we should all
Where-
try and
where's
post
the
something.
recording
next
be?
week.
Where will the recording be?
Oh, I will send it out, probably an email, and I'll probably put a link to it on Feldy Notebook.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again.
Yep.